No one truly prepares you for what it means to become a parent, but nothing prepares you for becoming the parent of twins. In the first few weeks, time dissolves into a blur of sleepless nights, endless cries, and a constant feeling that you are falling behind. You question everything: your strength, your patience, even your identity. What once felt like a beautiful miracle can suddenly feel like an overwhelming storm you can't escape. And in the quiet moments, when exhaustion takes over, a thought appears that many are too afraid to admit. What if I can't handle this? This is the hidden reality many parents of twins face, the emotional and psychological crisis no one talks about, but so many silently endure. Becoming a parent of twins is often portrayed as double the joy, double the love, but rarely do we talk about the double weight on your mind, your emotions, and your sense of self. In this video, we're going to explore the reality behind those first months, the crisis, the doubt, and the quiet battles happening inside your heart. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, lost, or emotionally drained while caring for your twins, this story is for you. And if you know someone going through this journey, it might help you understand them in a deeper way. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because sometimes, understanding is the first step toward healing. The moment you first hold your twins, there is a powerful surge of emotion that feels almost indescribable. A mixture of awe, love, disbelief, and a quiet fear that settles somewhere deep within your chest. Because even in that beautiful instant, you begin to sense that your life has just shifted into something far more complex than you imagined. Something that will demand more from you than you have ever given before. And although the world around you celebrates this miracle with smiles, photos, and congratulations, inside your mind a subtle question begins to form, one that you try to ignore but cannot fully silence. A question about whether you are truly ready to carry the weight of two lives that depend entirely on you, every hour of every day, without pause, without warning, without the luxury of stepping away when it becomes too much. In the early days, exhaustion does not arrive gradually. It crashes into your life like a relentless wave, stripping away your routines, your sense of time, and even your ability to think clearly. Because caring for twins means that just as one baby falls asleep, the other begins to cry, creating a cycle that feels endless, leaving you trapped in a rhythm where rest becomes a distant memory rather than a basic human need. And as your body weakens under the lack of sleep, your mind begins to follow, becoming slower, heavier, and more fragile, making even simple decisions feel overwhelming, while the emotional strain grows quietly in the background, feeding on your fatigue and turning small challenges into moments of deep internal struggle. As the days turn into weeks, the emotional weight begins to reveal itself more clearly, not through dramatic breakdowns, but through subtle shifts in how you feel about everything around you. As joy becomes harder to access, patience becomes thinner, and even the smallest inconvenience feels like an insurmountable obstacle, because your mental reserves are constantly depleted, leaving you with little space to process your own emotions. And in this state, you may find yourself feeling disconnected, not only from the world but also from yourself, as if the person you once were is slowly fading beneath the responsibilities that now define your existence, creating a quiet sense of loss that is difficult to explain to anyone who has not lived through it. There are moments when the silence becomes louder than the noise, when both babies are finally asleep, and instead of relief, you feel an overwhelming sense of emptiness, because your mind, conditioned by constant urgency, does not know how to rest anymore. And in those still moments, thoughts begin to surface, thoughts filled with doubt, guilt, and fear, questioning your abilities, your resilience, and your worth as a parent. And even though you know, rationally, that these thoughts are a product of exhaustion and stress, they still carry weight, shaping how you see yourself in your situation, making it harder to find confidence in your role, and slowly building a narrative that tells you that you are not doing enough, even when you are giving everything you have. The psychological toll of this experience is often invisible to others, because from the outside, you may appear to be managing, fulfilling your responsibilities, caring for your babies, and maintaining some level of normalcy. But internally, there is a constant tension, a feeling of being stretched beyond your limits, where every task requires more energy than you can afford to give. and every moment of relief feels temporary, overshadowed by the knowledge that another challenge is just around the corner, creating a cycle of anticipation and anxiety that keeps your mind in a state of alertness, preventing true rest and reinforcing the sense that you are always on the edge of being overwhelmed. In this phase, comparison becomes a silent enemy, as you begin to measure your experience against the stories and images you see from other parents, especially those who seem to navigate parenthood with ease, and this comparison fuels feelings of inadequacy, making you question why you are struggling so much when others appear to be thriving, even though you know deep down that every situation is different, and that raising twins brings a unique set of challenges. But logic does not always override emotion, and the pressure to meet an imagined standard only adds to the burden you are already carrying, making it harder to accept your reality with compassion and understanding. Relationships also begin to shift under this pressure, as the constant demands of caring for twins leave little time or energy for connection, whether with your partner, your friends, or even your own sense of self, and misunderstandings can arise more easily, fueled by fatigue and emotional strain, creating moments of tension that feel heavier than they would under normal circumstances. And as communication becomes more difficult, a sense of isolation can grow, making you feel as though you are facing this challenge alone, even when there are people around you who care, because the internal experience of this crisis is something that is difficult to fully share or explain. One of the most challenging aspects of this period is the unpredictability, the constant uncertainty about what each day will bring, because with twins, routines are harder to establish, and even when you think you have found a rhythm, it can change suddenly, forcing you to adapt again and again, and this lack of stability can be deeply unsettling, especially when you are already operating on limited emotional and physical resources, making it harder to find a sense of control or confidence in your ability to manage what lies ahead, reinforcing the feeling that you are always reacting rather than leading your own experience. Amid this chaos, your identity begins to shift in ways that are both profound and disorienting, as the roles and responsibilities of parenthood take center stage, leaving little room for the parts of yourself that existed before. And this transformation, while natural, can feel like a loss, especially when you do not have the time or space to process it fully, creating a sense of disconnection from who you once were and raising questions about who you are becoming, which can add another layer of emotional complexity to an already overwhelming situation. There are moments when guilt becomes a constant companion, appearing in different forms, whether it is the feeling that you are not giving enough attention to each child individually, or the belief that you should be handling everything better, or even the simple act of wanting a break, which can trigger a sense of selfishness that weighs heavily on your conscience. Even though these feelings are a natural response to an intense situation, they can still influence how you see yourself, making it harder to acknowledge your efforts and recognize the strength it takes to continue showing up every day. As the weeks continue, the accumulation of stress begins to affect not only your emotions but also your perception of time and progress, as days blur together and it becomes difficult to recognize small victories, because your focus is often on what still needs to be done rather than what has already been accomplished. And this can create a sense of stagnation, as if you are stuck in a loop with no clear endpoint, even though, in reality, you are constantly adapting, learning, and growing in ways that are not immediately visible but are deeply significant. Support, when available, can feel both essential and complicated, because while help can provide relief, it can also bring feelings of vulnerability, as accepting support requires acknowledging that you cannot do everything alone, which can be difficult in a culture that often values independence and self-sufficiency. And this internal conflict can make it harder to reach out, even when you know that doing so would benefit both you and your children, highlighting the importance of shifting your perspective on what strength truly means in this context. There are times when the emotional weight becomes so heavy that it feels almost physical, a pressure that sits in your chest, making it harder to breathe deeply or think clearly. And in these moments it can feel as though the situation will never change, as though this state of exhaustion and overwhelm is permanent, even though, in reality, it is a phase, one that will evolve over time. But when you are in the middle of it, that perspective can be difficult to hold on to, making each day feel like an isolated struggle rather than part of a larger journey. Despite everything, there are small moments that break through the intensity. Brief instances where you catch a glimpse of connection, whether it is a shared look between your twins, a quiet moment of calm, or a subtle sign that they are beginning to respond to the world around them. And these moments, while fleeting, carry a powerful reminder that there is meaning within the struggle, that beneath the exhaustion and doubt, something beautiful is unfolding, even if it is not yet fully visible. Over time, resilience begins to form, not as a sudden transformation, but as a gradual shift in how you respond to challenges. As you start to recognize patterns, develop strategies, and build a deeper understanding of your children and yourself. And while the difficulties do not disappear, your relationship with them begins to change, creating space for a sense of capability that was not present before. And this evolution, though subtle, marks an important step in moving beyond the initial crisis toward a more balanced experience. The realization that you are stronger than you believed often comes quietly, without a dramatic moment of clarity, but through the accumulation of small victories. Each day that you continue, each challenge that you navigate, each moment that you endure, until eventually you begin to see that what once felt impossible has become part of your reality, and while it may not be easy, it is no longer unthinkable. And this shift in perspective can bring a sense of empowerment that helps counterbalance the difficulties you have faced. In the end, the crisis of the first months is not a sign of failure, but a reflection of the immense demands placed upon you, both physically and emotionally. And recognizing this can help you approach your experience with greater compassion, understanding that struggling does not mean you are not capable, but rather that you are human, navigating a complex and demanding situation, and that within this struggle lies the potential for growth, connection, and a deeper understanding of what it means to care for others while also learning to care for yourself. There comes a moment, often unnoticed, when the chaos begins to soften, not because everything is suddenly easy, but because you have changed within it. The doubts that once felt overwhelming lose their intensity, and the weight you carried begins to feel more familiar, more manageable. Parenting twins in those first months is not just a test of endurance, but a transformation of identity, resilience, and emotional depth. If you are in that storm right now, feeling like you cannot cope, understand this: what you are experiencing is not weakness, but the process of becoming stronger in ways you never imagined. And even on the hardest days, the fact that you continue to show up is already proof that you are doing more than enough.